Well, I'm joined now from Atlanta by the political commentator, Professor Jason Johnson from Ohio's Hiram College. Thanks for joining us, Professor Johnson. Lots of different perspectives on this deal struck in Geneva, depending, of course, whether you're Russian, Ukrainian, European or American. Perhaps from where you're sitting, you could give us a sense of what the Obama administration's thoughts are about this deal. Do they really think it's going to work?
No, they don't really think it's going to work, but you have to understand the pressures that the president is under. One of the greatest weaknesses of the Obama administration is that the American people don't think he's a tough leader. They don't necessarily think he handles crises as well as some of his predecessors. So what the president really wants to do is just calm this situation down. The United States lacks the resources, the political will, and the money to do anything other than enforce sanctions on Russia. But they want some of the bloodshed to end so that this doesn't end up affecting the president in the fall midterm elections.
Looking forward, two key dates to come in May. May the 11th, perhaps, a referendum planned by some of those groups in the East. May 25th, a national election planned by the authorities in Kiev, taking in perhaps the west and the center of the country. As democracy goes, we're talking about two vastly divergent paths. What are the chances, do you think, of success?
I don't think there's much of a chance of success. And I think what we're really seeing play out here is sort of the last gas of the Cold War. I think a lot of times what the American public doesn't always understand about this situation is that while Vladimir Putin appears to be engaging in aggressive actions, these are actually defensive actions. The U.S. has been bit by bit taking away former Warsaw Pact countries and putting them into NATO. And so the Russians feel that having some semblance of control over Ukraine is the only thing that keeps Putin protected from the rest of NATO. So all of these elections are going to be fought out with these sort of East and West influences, and it won't necessarily solve anything.
Well, once more, taking advantage of your position inside the United States, one does get a feeling a little bit that the West and the US, Washington in particular, perhaps is grasping at this a bit, not sure quite what to do about it, and with not very many options.
There really aren't very many options. Again, in the United States, this is seen as Putin being an aggressive imperialist. But if you look at it from a realistic global perspective, he's really engaging in defensive actions. He ran into a burning building to save his valuables. He already knows that Ukraine is probably going to become a much more pro-Western, pro-United States nation. So grabbing of Crimea and maybe some of these other districts of the country that he can is Putin's last attempt to retain some influence over this satellite. And the United States doesn't know how to stop that other than imposing sanctions, and so far Putin seems fairly disinterested in what the sanctions might do to him or his country.
Okay, we're going to leave it there. Jason Johnson, Professor of Political Science at Hiram University in Ohio, speaking to us from Atlanta.